As the author of Six Sources of Collapse, how did the idea for the book arise?
Well, I spent a lot of time when I was in the consulting industry visiting companies and plants and the like, looking for problems. It started after the Bhopal accident in India, and what I discovered was every time you start to investigate a problem, there's usually not a single cause for it, but there's all kinds of multiple causes and multiple things going on. And I think that's the case with environmental issues and financial issues and the like. There's never a single cause for something collapsing, but it's much more complicated than that. So I saw multiple dimensions to collapses. At the same time, I felt that I could use mathematics to structure the way I looked at these things and to try to tease out the different kinds of dynamics that were going on at the same time. And so that's what really led me to this. It looked like just a very interesting story because I think so many people need to have a better grip on these processes because we live in a world that's constantly changing, and to pretend that collapses are the out of the ordinary event is really wrong. Things are collapsing all the time. We just need to manage collapse. We need to be able to anticipate it. We need to be able to work with it. And I think a wider range of people, not just restricted to specialists in one field or another, need to understand it. And I felt that looking at it this way was a way to capture people's attention and help us all do a better job of managing it.
So you defined 6 sources of collapse. How did you come up with that kind of model for?
Well, I made I've been working on a list for a long time of collapses. And I wanted to find some organizing framework to put them together. And 6 is not my original number. But I wanted to get logical connections between them. And what it boiled down to is I got 6 that were really distinct from each other. Every one of these really brings in a different phenomenon. And I felt that captured a very large range. It captured everything that was obvious to me. Now, some of the categories are multifaceted. Nonlinearity captures many different kinds of nonlinear behaviors, but it captures a kind of phenomenon I felt would go into a single category called nonlinearity, and the same is true for the others. So it seemed to be a manageable number of distinct phenomena. Things fit together well, and I thought that would create something that people could remember. The whole point for writing the book is to help people really think better about collapses. I want political scientists to think about it, anthropologists, biologists, physicians. We're trying to get tumors to collapse, trying to get diseases to collapse, all kinds of things, right? I want to get it in a framework where people would remember the 6, and it would just remind them when they're looking at different kinds of phenomena to tick off these 6 because they might give them different ways of looking at something and enrich their understanding of it.
As you were writing the book, were there things that surprised you, things that you learned beyond what you had already gained from your experience?
Oh, I learned so much in the process of writing the book. I mean, I had to read so much background information from different fields. I had to understand, even just to put a small amount in about the folding of proteins or the battles against cancer, fields I really knew nothing about going in. The whole range of things, I just learned so much. It was a thrilling experience because as an academic, I just love to learn. That's my business, is learning and teaching. But I had to study very hard to do this. It was just a lot of fun, but hard work.
You also seem to emphasize the importance of mathematics in all of these areas. I mean, this is environmental science and economics, a wide variety of things. How do you see that?
Well, if you really, a lot of people think that mathematics is about solving equations. And as I say right in my introduction, they've got it all wrong. Mathematics isn't about solving equations. Mathematics is about abstracting the qualities of certain things from the accidental aspects of them and really focusing on the essential features. You can look at many different things that have a square shape, but a square is the abstraction that we apply to that kind of a shape. That's the mathematical construct that we apply to square tables and square blocks and things like that. It's the same in collapse. Whether you're looking at low probability events, which is one of my categories for markets, for astronomical occurrences, asteroids hitting the Earth, for accidents that humans might occur. The issue is really a low probability event, and how can we do the best job possible of trying to understand the probability of something occurring, so we know whether it's something that we want to actively guard against or not, and how much we should invest in guarding against it. So mathematics really abstracts the key features of these different kinds of processes, and that's why it's an essential tool for studying collapse, for studying environmental issues, or for studying many other phenomena.
You tell a lot of, in fact, stories here about different scenarios, different situations. Is there one that you could just describe as a favorite?
Well, the story that I start with is one that should be known by every school child, namely the fact that we Americans obliterated in the last few centuries the most populous bird on the face of the earth, the passenger pigeon. Everybody should know the story of the passenger pigeon, because when you learn it, you say, oh my God, I didn't realize we could really do that. You know, you can tell stories about the elimination of the dinosaurs, or how people probably did in the woolly mammoths and the like, but here we are in the 1700s and the 1800s, and we are wiping out a species, and we start off with billions of birds. Billions of birds. No one would ever think we could eliminate them. You might be able to kill a lot of them. They're all gone. The last one died in the Cincinnati Zoo, September 1st, 1914, and is immortalized there. Her name was Martha, and every single one died, partly because we killed them off for food, for sport, and everything else, and partly because that by killing them off and by changing the environment, we took the resulting population and made it unsustainable. And this is what we face today when we have species that are endangered in life, taking something to a level where all of a sudden it's going to disappear on its own, actually, without us pushing the last one over the edge. That's an important lesson, and it's not widely understood at all.
Just taking off from that, what would you hope a reader of the book would most get out of it?
I think a reader of the book would have renewed energy and appreciation for the changing world that we live in. As you get older, you look back and you see many changes. If I look at today's geography books, they're very different from the boundaries of countries from when I was a student. And they were very different from when my grandmother was a student. Young people today haven't experienced that change over time that many of us who are older have experienced, and don't realize that the world is really built on one change on top of another. It's not a linear process that runs along smoothly. People in the future need to be ready to deal with those kinds of changes, whether they work in politics, business, academia, or other spheres. They need to appreciate how quickly things can change and how flexibility and adaptability are very important. And I think using a mathematical framework to look at how quick some of the different processes can take place is really good training, because I don't think those lessons can then be easily forgotten.
And I think you also make the point that collapse isn't necessarily negative, that there are positive ways in which it can be used.
That's right. We were all thrilled in the West when the Soviet Union collapsed. It collapsed because of many of the kinds of dynamics that we're talking about in the book here. We are happy with the fact that polio is collapsing and almost gone. We use mathematical methods, network analysis methods to understand criminal networks and terrorist networks to help them to collapse. So the same kinds of things that we use to manage or prevent collapses that we don't want, or at least to understand them and deal with them, we can also take advantage of, perhaps to promote the kinds of collapses that we want to promote.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.